I'm Simon. I help happy staff deliver better things sooner. And so I want to talk about effective management. And this is close to my heart because the discipline of management has been around for over 100 years, since World War One, but a lot of people are still thrown into management positions in the deep end without middle support. And I know as a parent, it feels much the same. I've got a boy of 7 months and it feels like I've been thrown in the deep end as well. But there's two reasons why I want to talk about effective management through parenting. And the first reason is we call it empathize with parenting. We've all been kids. Some of us have been parents. It's quite intuitive. And the second reason is there's so many similarities, as I hope we'll see, between management and parenting. Really only three things I want to talk about. One is, why is it so difficult? And then I want to tell you a story about parenting. And in doing so, I want to introduce you to two tools that we can then use in a management situation, just to show that those two tools work in either scenario and hopefully for good. Three disclaimers. Firstly, I'm going to ask questions as I go. I hope that's okay. That's not to test you, it's to test me, to make sure I'm conveying the material in a way that makes sense. Secondly, all the good ideas in this presentation come from other people, including my mentor, my father, my family, and these great thinkers here. All the bad ideas are mine. And finally, the reason I want to talk about effective management and parenting in the same breath is not because you should treat your kids like staff or staff like kids. They all have their own wants and needs, as Noah puts it. But it's just because there's similarities that I think would come help them. Right. So why is it so difficult? Let's look at each one at a time. I'm just going to list some of the things I find difficult. And hopefully it's not exhaustive, but hopefully there's some things that will resonate there for you. So from a parenting perspective, I don't know about you, but it feels like I'm thrown in the deep end. What to do is not obvious. What works is not obvious. You maybe months or years before you know whether what you did on a particular day was actually the right thing. And often we're given advice that just doesn't feel right from a belief perspective. Parenting or management even, it feels like we're thrown in the deep end, as I said. What to do isn't obvious. Worked is not obvious. It may be months or years before we know whether we harmed a member of staff. Hopefully not. And we're often given advice that just doesn't feel right. So what causes these challenges to be so similar? That's a good answer. Any others? A little shy. Julie Zhao, a VP of design at Facebook, says your job as a manager is to get the better outcomes from a group of people working together. And the key words are help others succeed. And I think that's what is the issue here. Both parenting and management is about helping other people succeed. And it sounds really silly, but we're not them. And so it means we don't directly experience their situation or control them. Whilst it's obvious to us what we need to succeed, it's not obvious to us what other people need from us to succeed. And also, we're not in their situation. We can't directly control them. They're not avatars in a game. They're not marionettes that we can just control, as much as sometimes it feels like we would prefer to do that. And the funny thing is, we can tell them what to do, but if we do, they probably won't listen. It's a waste of their initiative and creativity, and we'll just exhaust ourselves. We'll burn out. So there must be a better way. What has helped us succeed in the past would help us help others succeed in the future. So recap, if managers and parents must now create conditions for others to succeed, then they no longer directly control or experience the situation. And what that means is it's now less obvious what might be a helpful action or an unhelpful action. And so I believe that to be effective, parents and managers need to discern helpful from unhelpful. And I hope that's what we can achieve today. Right. So I'm going to introduce you to a parenting story. This is based on research by Alfie Kohn, a child psychologist. It may feel a little bit exaggerated. It probably is, but unfortunately it's very realistic. And I'm going to word it all in first person because I can see myself making these mistakes in a couple of years. Right. So imagine you're in this situation where the kid is lying, my kid is lying, my kid is acting out at school, my kid is resolving conflicts using power, he's bullying, and he isn't developing his moral compass. He's not able to make moral decisions in the way that I'm liking to be able to. If this was you, before I take ownership of this problem, what would you do? Read a book? Yeah, absolutely. How to Ferret? Yeah, absolutely. Parenting 101. Have the conversation with the bits? Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, yeah, I'm still letting that one. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. So try and help with his moral compass so he sees. Absolutely. Yeah, don't disagree with all that. I'm going to take actually some notes from this. It's helpful to me. So let's introduce you to the first tool, which is the current reality tree, which is just a causality diagram. And the way to read it is in power is an if then. So if the lamp is not plugged in, then the lamp will not turn on. And a circle is and cause. If it is raining and if I'm outside, then I'll get wet. So really simple, and I'll narrate you through it. What I'm going to do first is then put all the observations we had at the very top there And even if we just stare at these just for a few minutes, you can start to see some cause and effect relationships, right? So if my kid resolves conflicts using power, we're probably going to see him acting out at school. And also, if my kid isn't able to develop his moral compass, because I haven't had those discussions with him, and I'm not always present to be my kid's moral compass, then that's probably another reason why he acts out of school when I'm not there to help him. Also, I believe my kid doesn't make good decisions. We already see evidence of that. And if that is the case, I'm going to tell him what to do because I want him to make good decisions for his benefit as well as everyone else's. If that is the case, and it's decisions that exercise and develop moral judgment, I'm robbing him of the opportunity to develop his moral compass. Also, if I tell my kid what to do and I need my child to comply with what I say, and my kid has his own desires, he's his own person, I'm going to punish him when he doesn't do what I say. And if I punish him when he doesn't do what I say, and punishments are designed to be undesirable, he's going to focus on avoiding punishments. And he's going to get so good at that, he's going to learn to lie. I'm encouraging him to learn to lie. And so he lies. Also, if I punish my kid when he doesn't do as I say, and punishment models power as a valid solution to conflicts, he's going to use that as a role model. He's going to resolve his conflicts with power, right? And if my kid acts out at school and my kid lies, I don't believe my kid is making good decisions. And we go round and round. The more the strategy fails, the more we can assume the problem is with the child rather than the strategy itself. It's a downward spiral, self-perpetuates him. So, would tackling any of the symptoms directly have helped, i.e. those ones we saw at the beginning? Sure. As Deming said, every system is perfectly designed to get the results it gets. Those are perfect reactions to my action, which was telling my kid what to do. But knowing what you know now, where would you focus your action? If you could wave your magic wand, your magic finger, whatever you have that's magic at one of the boxes up here, which one would it be to try and unwind his tail? And which box do you think that might tackle? If I have to hold you to a particular box on that screen. Oh, okay, so got one nice boat, one boat down here. Any others? Thank you. Sorry? And which box would you be focusing on? Perfect. Any other takers? Any disagreements with them? Cool. Yeah, no, I'm curious about this one too. It's not that this is wrong. The further down we go, the more it affects, right? Everything seems to come from this. There's some things that come from this, but everything seems to stem from this. So I feel both of you are pretty astute, right? I'd just be one click further down here. So the question comes, and this one's rhetorical, we'll explore it together. Why do I tell my kid what to do? I must have a particular need or goal that I'm trying to achieve through that action. Otherwise I wouldn't be doing it. And if you're a family counselor or a consultant going to an organization and there's a behavior, there's a reason behind that behavior. And if we don't know what that goal or need is, we can't help them choose another alternative because we need to find an alternative that fits their goal, their need, right? So we'll come to that in a second, but for now, the current reality tree is a way of tracing back from symptoms to underlying cause. Focusing anywhere there isn't an underlying cause leads to only temporary improvement at best, or nothing, as you help me see. In this case, making all decisions for my kid is improving his ability to make, is impairing, not improving, his ability to make good decisions in the future. Sorry, definitely not improving. And the question is, are we going to ask together, why did I make all those decisions for my kid? So I want to talk about conflicts, and conflicts here can be conflicts in your mind, right? You've given advice and you don't know how to combine that with what you already know. It can be conflicts with other people. So it could be, do I lend my son my car or not? Probably not because it's 6 months old, but still. Do I stay in my current job? Do I move to a new one? As a country, do we begin austerity measures or not? These are all conflicts where you can only choose one answer. So this is an imaginary conflict I'm going to have with my wife in a few years. My wife is going to say, let him make decisions. And I'm going to say, well, no, I'm just going to tell him what to do. There's a conflict. We can have one or the other, or we can compromise. So my wife gives our kid freedom whilst I'm more strict. My kid will then learn to go to my wife every time he wants something. And I'm going to argue with my wife saying, you're too lenient, and she's going to argue with me saying, you're too strict. No one's happy. Everyone loses. And Ellie Goldratt says, our fear is that conflicts will lead to a tug of war, diverts management or parent attention to instead constantly struggle with unaccepted compromises. But we can actually remove every conflict, and that can generate a win-win for everyone. So the question I have here is, do my wife and I have different goals from what little you say goals? Yeah? What makes you say that? Oh, beautiful. Oh, you put it better than I can. I'm going to try and keep up with that. That's amazing. Yes. So by focusing, Joseph Fernie says, by focusing on high long-term goals, we often find ways to transcend short-term compromises. We can find something that we're both trying to achieve. As you said, happy child, independent child. So in this case, let's do that. If I ask my wife, my imaginary wife in the imaginary future, hopefully not imaginary wife, but wife in the future, what was your goal? Why do you want to let him make decisions? She'll say, have a happy family, right? You're absolutely right. And in order to have a happy family, I must ensure my kid has a fulfilling life because my kid's happiness makes me happy. And in order to ensure my kid has a fulfilling life, I need to help him make decisions because autonomy helps my kid find and become the person that he wants to be. On the other side, you ask me, Simon, why are you telling your kid what to do? And I say, I want to have a happy family too, but frankly, in order to have a happy family, I want an easier life myself. Because being a parent is hard. And having an easy life myself means I need to tell him what to do because it is easier to tell my kid how to behave than teach him how to behave. So as you said, right? As you said, we have the same goal, but we just have different means of reaching it. And these things that are circled in the blue that you probably can't see from the back, forgive me, are all assumptions. They're reasons that underpin each side of the argument. And as Lisa Scheinkopf says, people are hurt and organizations do not improve. We stay in compromise due to our carelessness in the use of the pros because of our assumptions that we don't question. And so this tool, this conflict cloud, is a way of trying to bring out the assumptions from each side of the argument. Because if we can prove one of these assumptions wrong, the conflict dissolves or evaporates. So I'm going to skip this question just because I realize the time is scary. Geez, can you find an invalid assumption? I think over here, we can see that it's easier to tell my kid how to behave than to teach him how to behave. Is that really true? Is it really true now when he's 6 months old? Maybe. Is it true when he's 20 years old, 30 years old, 40 years old? I don't think so. I don't think in the future it's going to be easier to tell him how to behave on every given day. That's hard for him. That's hard for me. And Peter Senge puts it, he says, short-term improvements often lead to long-term dependency. So me constantly making decisions for my child today, this means I'm going to have to make decisions for him for the rest of his life. And that does not take me towards my goal of having an easier life. So this is not true. And if I remove that, we can both do the same thing, the same means, same action, right? Because the more decisions my kids make, the less decisions I need to make for him. I get an easier life. So we're in violent agreement. So in families and organizations, we're all working to the same goal, as we said. Conflicts therefore arise due to disagreements on how to reach the same goal, as we said. Accepting a compromise means everyone loses. Finding an incorrect assumption creates a win-win solution. And the evaporating cloud, the thing we just saw, provides a mechanism to bring out the assumptions we believe to be true and question. Yeah, and that's the assumption, right? It's easy to tell my kid how to behave now, but give him 20 years, I'm going to jump into management. And we're going to use the same tools in a management situation to see if they prove help. This is a call center. This comes from a book by, I forgot his name, but Dan. Same Dan. Let's call him Dan. Right. Okay. So call center carnage. These are the observations. Again, similar approach, right? This time I'll be more rhetorical just in the interest of time. Forgive me. Customers are frustrated. Costs are increasing. Agent attrition is high. Call volumes are increasing. Whew. Everything's on fire, right? So what do you do? So let me take the traditional approach as a management or a management consultant, right? This is what we're often taught to do. So if customers are frustrated, let's improve agent training, right? Because if they talk to nicer people on the phone, we'll probably give costs increasing. Let's just have a hiring freeze. If the agent attrition is high, introduce a bonus. Call volume is increasing. Hide the call center number. And the smallest one to the most obscure web page on your site. You have mess printer. And then what we do is we, of course, are taught to do a cost versus impact analysis, take all the top 3, rank them, and done. Right, really simple. But the problem is that if we improve agent training, in a yellow arrow that you can barely probably see actually, if we improve agent training, that comes at a cost. So we're going to actually make costs increasing worse. And if we institute a hiring freeze, we're probably going to frustrate customers because if there's less agents to answer the phone because of the attrition, they're going to be waiting for longer. So that's probably going to frustrate them. And if we introduce a bonus, that's going to come at a cost. And if we hide the call center number, customers are going to be frustrated because they've had to hunt for the number for 10 minutes. So all we're doing is moving problems around. We're not solving them. And Akoff says, managers are not confronted with problems that are independent, but instead problems that interact with each other. And therefore we don't solve problems, we manage the mess of problems. So the problems we observe are often just symptoms of underlying cause. Attempting to tackle symptoms in isolation will often just push the effects elsewhere. It's therefore we use the old trusty current reality tree as we did with parenting. Where is all this coming from? And we have 8 minutes to do that. Right. So these are the observations. High, agent attrition is high, blah, blah, blah. Those are the ones you saw before. There's a couple I didn't mention. Customers are going to competitors and agent absence is high as well. The question is, where is all this coming from? Hopefully causality, our trusty friend can help. So if customers are going elsewhere, if customers are frustrated, that's probably why they're going elsewhere. We can already see just from staring at these things for long enough, a cause and effect relationship. If agent attrition is high, and the assumption is that hiring and training agents is costly, then that's probably one reason why costs are increasing. Also, if agent absence is high, and therefore we need a greater body of agents to cover that absenteeism, that's going to come at a cost. Also, call centers are a cost to minimize, and apparently you've done 150 steps today. Call centers are a cost to minimize. That's generally the assumption. It's a cost center. If that is the case, then we're going to incentivize agents to put the phone down as quickly as possible. Because if they put down the phone quicker, they can get on to the next call. We need less agents, right? So that is the case. And we take into account that each customer and issue is unique, and therefore the time needed per call will vary. We have a difficulty because we're incentivizing agents to put the phone down quickly, whereas they may need varying amounts of time per call. So what that means is at the end, customers are probably going to need to call back several times to resolve any one issue. Also, it means that agents are less able to resolve customer issues. They're both sides of the same coin. If they need to call more than once to resolve any issue, they're going to get frustrated. We've hit the phone number, they finally call, they get pushed off the phone, they have to call again and maybe again. But also, if customers need to call back several times to resolve any one issue, call volumes are going to increase. And John Seddon calls this failure demand. The demand caused by failures to do something right, to do something right for the customer. Because we failed to fix the issue first time, then to call again and again. Call volumes increase synthetically, not like for any real reason. And if call volumes are increasing, mostly due to failure demand, because we failed to do things right first time round, then we're going to need more agents. And if we need more agents, and it comes at a cost increase. Also, if agents are less able to resolve customer issues, agents are going to feel disengaged. They're like, why do I come to work each day? What's the point? And that doesn't just lead to absenteeism, but also leads to attrition. They go elsewhere where they can make a difference. If costs are increasing, then we're going to further try and minimize costs. That was the sad one. So knowing what you know now, where would you focus your action? Again, rhetorical just to the 6 minutes, forgive me. Again, using the same logic you had, it seems like everything comes from somewhere at the bottom here, which is this, right? This is the action we're taking that's the furthest down on the page. We are incentivizing agents to put the phone down quickly. And that's leading to everything. It's leading to agents being unable to make a difference. It's leading to frustrated customers to need to keep calling back, and therefore more agents, more calls, more fuss. Right, recap. The current reality tree is a way of tracing back from symptoms to an underlying cause. You know this now as a chorus. In many organizations, failure demand consumes actually 50% of capacity. And what that means is, if we resolve issues right first time, we're probably going to double our agent capacity for free without hiring any more people, because they'll have to do half the work they do today. Half the calls they're picking up are people calling back for a second, third time. So why are we incentivizing agents to keep calls short? Let's imagine a call center, a head of finance and a head of customer success, right? You can imagine the conflict that they're facing. One is saying, hey, you should limit call length. And the other one's saying, oh, no, don't limit call length. There's a conflict. As a compromise is not the way forward. So the question is, do these managers have different goals? And speed ahead, forgive me? Probably not. Head of finance wants a successful call center because if he doesn't have a successful call center, he's probably out of a job. In order to run a successful call center, he wants to minimize costs. That's why he's the head of finance. All he can do is influence costs. He can't do anything else. And he believes that this needs to be done because call centers are a cost to minimize. But in order to minimize costs, we need to limit call length because shorter calls mean less agents required. So if they take 10 minutes per call as opposed to 20, they could do twice the number of calls in a day. We need half the number of agents. That's fantastic, right? In order to run a successful call center on the right-hand side, the head of customer success believes we need to satisfy customers. Because satisfied customers improve long-term profitability. We retain them. They don't come off the phone angry and run away. Also, if we satisfy in order to satisfy customers, we don't limit call length because each customer and issue is unique. Resolution time will vary. Like when you go to the doctor. Some people need longer than others. Right. We both have the same goals. So the conflict isn't about where we're trying to get to, it's how we get there. And again, these assumptions, where is the faulty one? We already know this isn't true because we've had to hire more agents just going through the cause and effects approach, right? And so if that's not true, we shouldn't be doing this. That's actually encouraging more calls. And so we can strip this out. This argument no longer applies. You can stretch this out and say, in order to minimize costs, don't limit call length because solving issues on first contact reduces call volume and agents required, reduces waste. Failure demand. Right, so what? This is the end. Right, so in order to help others, as we said at the very beginning, whether they're children, whether they're our kids, whether they're our staff, we need to be able to discern a helpful action from an unhelpful action. Helpful actions come from valid assumptions about reality. Unhelpful actions come from invalid assumptions about reality. As a father, I may tell my kid what to do because it seems easier to tell my kid how to behave than to teach him how to behave. That's my assumption. It led to all the wrong things. Everyone lost. As a head of finance, I may limit call length because shorter calls mean less agents are required. That wasn't true. It led to more calls, more agents, more costs, unhappy customers, everyone lost. And the current reality tree helps us see the consequences of our incorrect assumptions, whereas the evaporating cloud then helps us find or replace the invalid assumption with a valid one. But there's one more thing that's really scary about both stories here. It's bittersweet. As managers and as parents, we're usually the source of the problems we see. Whose decision was it to limit call length? Whose decision was it to tell my kid what to do? It was the manager and the parent. And Peter Senge says, when people who are actually creating a system, be it a family system or work system, start to see themselves as the source of their problems, they invariably discover a new capacity to create results they truly desire. And that's really bittersweet. It's scary to know that I create the problems, but it's really reassuring to know that I have the power to fix them. And seeing. Now what? These are the books that informed this presentation. Dan Heath, that was the Dan. Really good books. I'll share these slides if you want. Thank you very much for having me. This is where you can find me. And here's a compilation of short articles if you want to help dysfunctional organizations. Thank you. Oh, thank you very much. We all the answers.
First of all, thank you for this presentation. Was really, I would say, eye-opening. I have one question on your kind of last remark, which seems to be very obvious, as we are actually a source of our problems. Do you have any advice how to deliver this message in a nice manner so people wouldn't get pretty upset or get defensive?
Yeah, that's a really tough. I'm struggling with that question myself, right? I think John Seddon divides 3 ways of intervening into a system, right? I'm going to try and remember them. One is coercive, right? To intervene with the system, if I was a grandparent, I might just tell my parent, my son or daughter, me, what to do. Don't do that. And then I need to listen. That's least effective. The next most effective one is rational, right? Where you say, there's some research out there, and logically, if you do this, what you might see is that. And that's what I've done here, right? You can keep up with it, but you may not really embed it unless you really are curious, right? Using logic or rational approach is somewhat effective. But again, it's what consultants do. They use slide, they try to convince, and they try to show through logic. But then there's the final approach, which is normative, which is you get the person to experience the effects of their actions. And that way they can start to see for themselves the impact that they're having. You take them into the system, go to the game, all that stuff, right? And that way they can actually see the decision that they made isn't having the intended effect. That's when they have cognitive dissonance. They realize their intended effect is not the same as their actual effect. And they have this really painful moment. Like when I realized eating meat, but I love animals, and that's really painful, right? You have to bring them to have that. But they have to want that. So yeah, bringing them closer to reality and the impact of their actions. How do you do that? I'm still learning. What do you think? Does that?
I think that I personally struggle with message delivery rather than the content. So sometimes you observe the inconsistencies and you ask people to go and, like you said, read and try to do it yourself. But even though you still have to find a way to properly publish this message so it will be accusational or that like telling them what to do.
Yeah.
It's a matter of application still, but I think it gave me a bit of more to think about.
I appreciate that. And you're quite right. I think John Seddon, again, of the Vanguard method to a lot of his materials from, as well as Noah, a lot of what they do, Noah is now a coach. And that then invites people, leaders, to come to them when they're ready for this and ready to embrace it. And without that, you can't have a normative approach. You can't help them explore their assumptions and the reality. So yeah, thank you. Thank you.
I've got a 6-month-old boy at home, so I feel you resonate. Any advice on someone with limited success drawing diagrams about babies with their wives?
But that's a good question. What's your intended effect? What are you trying to do together?
We want to analyze things, and then you'll be told, let's not analyze that.
And when you say analyze things, can you tell me a little bit more about what you want to achieve together? That's okay.
It's typically baby stuff. Trying to find the cause and effects. Was that an actual thing you were doing, or just this truth?
Oh yeah, that's a good question. All of that was, I'm grateful to say at this stage, was Ralphie Cohn's book, Unconditional Parenting. I'm sure in 2 years it will be a representation of my life, don't get me wrong. But I think the best approach, if you both are interested in it, I'm always happy to chat, of course, is I think It's Not Luck by Eli Goldratt. So he structures all of this in a narrative and he applies these 2 tools to his personal life as well as work. But the typical approach is to start with the observations. What are the things, you need to, as long as you know what your goal is, and generally that's quite implicit with a family, As you then look at all the things that are getting in the way of the goal. What are the undesirable effects, the symptoms, the things that indicate that the goal isn't true? And then you work backwards and say, what could be causing this? And you keep asking why, and eventually you'll see, like with natural phenomenon, things tend to converge, like to the law of gravity or whatever. So you just list all the observations and start to work backwards. And again, you need to do it together because it's a collective system. And then if you keep asking why, generally it'll converge on this one or two. But always have this chat.